All right, what's up to everyone here on Patreon? Welcome to the extended cut of It's Not Normal, the podcast, episode 10. In this week's episode, we talked about why our happiness is a threat to the narcissist in our lives. And I posted a TikTok talking about this topic, specifically about finally getting my dream truck, a truck that I had been obsessing over since I was in the 6th grade, and pulling up to my parents' house, hoping that they would share in my excitement and joy, and instead being met with mocking energy, comments like, wow, I can't believe that you would look how shiny this is. Oh, what about this? Well, I can't believe you would do this. Negativity. It was a positive experience that was met with negativity by my narcissistic parent for a number of reasons. But I've got a ton of comments that I'd like to get into, so let's do it. The first comment that we've got is from The Witchy Cottage, who said, I found early on my parents didn't want me better than them. They wanted me one step below, so they still had power. Narcissists have such an obsession with control, and I think that translates to how happy they can feel for you when you're achieving things in your own personal life. Not only that, but I think narcissists are very envious, and so they're driven to compare their life, their car, whatever the situation might be, with your own. And if yours is objectively better, then that I think is viewed as a threat to them. It makes me think about when my husband and I started our business. I was going out on my own, and once it actually started to catch and I was able to support myself financially, I was standing on my own 2 feet. To my narcissistic parent, it was as if my business never even existed. And again, I think it's partially because maybe they were comparing their life to my own, their business to my own. Narcissists also don't have very much empathy. And so seeing someone in their life be happy or successful doesn't necessarily trigger any sort of positive emotions within themselves, especially if they're not the source of that happiness. And so not only are they maybe feeling a little bit worse about their own situation or their own life, but that independence and that individuality is also threatening to them, because the less you rely on your narcissistic parent, the harder it is for them to maintain control over you. I think it's also kind of an image thing where they want to feel like they're the center of attention, like the spotlight is on them. And if you're doing well, that's all well and good, but I'm doing better. All right, the next comment that we've got is from Mick Smashley. Oh, but then once they figure out how they can get supply from your achievement, then only they'll be happy. Not for you, but for how it makes them look. Absolutely. This is totally what I was talking about in the episode when I was talking about some of my earlier accomplishments in like my pre-K to 8th grade years when I was in elementary school. I was doing a lot of really great things academically, I think, from being valedictorian, to winning the science fair, to going to the spelling bee, whatever it was, I was really good academically. And even in terms of athletics, I was on the cheerleading team and the basketball team. I was very involved in my school. And I think that reflected really well on my parents and as our family as a whole. And again, knowing that narcissists and even enabling parents are so obsessed with this image that they portray to everyone else in their lives besides the people who are actually making up this image, it made a lot of sense to me why I felt like these accomplishments were celebrated and supported by my narcissistic parents, and my accomplishments later in life weren't. They were kind of needed for some of these things where, I would maybe have to be driven to the basketball tryouts, or I would need to go to the store with them and they would have to buy a board for me to put my science fair project on. So they were in some way directly involved, and they were also kind of benefiting from my accomplishments because it reflected well on them. And so that was the reason that they were happy about it. And when you're young, you aren't really given a lot of opportunities for your parents to not be happy for you about personal accomplishments because you are so reliant on them. And so it wasn't until I was older, kind of in my early 20s, and I was starting to do these things, these really positive things in my own life that didn't involve my parents, that I was able to see their reactions to those things and that they were far more negative. I didn't feel that support or that celebration that I once did when I was in, 3rd or 4th or 5th grade, whatever it might be. And that's when it started to click for me. They are not benefiting. They are not directly involved in these achievements. And so they, in their minds, are not gaining anything from it? What do they have to be happy about? All right, the next comment is from Gabdor. My mom was so happy when I got my new truck. Know what my dad did? Literally went out and bought a new truck too, just to show off that he got one too. It makes me think about the difference between healthy relationships and relationships with narcissists. Narcissists' main goal is to dominate a relationship. And more often than not, they struggle with insecurity and low self-esteem. And so they have to do these big gestures, I guess, to kind of assert their dominance over this relationship and to not allow the spotlight to be taken off of them. Where it's like, yeah, you got a cool new truck. Cool. I can get one too. I can do this thing too. I can one up you because I'm better than you, because my life is better than you. I'm more successful than you are. Whatever it might be, there's no goal there of any kind of mutual respect or understanding. It is purely domination. They want to be at the top, and they'll try to figure out a way not only to assert their own dominance, but also how to minimize your accomplishments so that they minimize that threat to their spotlight or to their success, whatever it might be. And it's such an unhealthy environment to grow up in, where these people who you care about, you rely on, they really should be your biggest supporters and your cheerleaders, but instead, they're comparing your life to their own. They're kind of competing with you and always making sure that they're one step ahead or that they can one-up you. The next comment is from KLS, who said, "It's so wild to me because I have literally no goal for my child other than her being happy. The only thing I want for her is to be happy. I literally can't even think of any sort of specific thing I hope for her other than to be happy. I tried to think of one and I couldn't. I started to type, I hope she had a supportive partner, but then I was like, well, if she doesn't want a partner, that's also fine, as long as she's good." This is the approach to parenting that we need. And I imagine if I have a kid one day, all I'll want for them is to be happy. Because that's all that life is about. And happiness is whatever it is to you. That's something different to everyone, and that's completely fine. And it makes me think back to so many experiences throughout my childhood where my happiness and the things that felt true to me, the decisions that I wanted to make, were not prioritized by my parent, where those came second to the wants and needs and emotions of my narcissistic parent. How they could feel justified in that, I don't know, but it comes back to narcissism. I don't think that narcissists have a clear view on reality or how their behavior is affecting the people around them because they are so self-focused. And so they're not concerned with the development of their child or with the wants or the needs or the emotions of their child, because all they're thinking about is themselves and their own lives and how everything that's going on around them is affecting them and not other people. And it seems like it can be so straightforward, where you bring someone into the world and all you want for them is to be happy and successful, whatever that might mean to them, all while knowing that that means something different to everybody. Their idea of happiness and success could be completely different from your own, and that's okay. And I think having those conversations and accepting that with your own child makes all the difference in their life moving forward, to now feel comfortable trusting their intuition, to feel comfortable maybe making those harder, scarier decisions if they know that it's the right thing to do, all while having the reassurance that they have a support system at home no matter the decision they make. I can't even imagine how beneficial that must be to a child. So good on you, and other parents should totally think about that. All right, the next comment is from Hello56797, who said, "My favorite is when they mock and then ask, 'What, no sense of humor?' and say they have to walk on eggshells around me. Meanwhile, we're actually the ones walking on eggshells around them." I hated when I would actually be upset by something, maybe something rude or hurtful would be said, and then it was taken as me not having a sense of humor or not being able to take a joke. And there's a big difference between joking and poking fun at someone and actually saying something that's rude or hurtful or kind of like triggers something personally upsetting. It's not your responsibility to react in a way that someone else wants you to react to something that they said or did. Your emotions and opinions are entirely valid, and you can feel however you want to feel. And I think when you grow up with a narcissistic parent, you are kind of conditioned to suppress a lot of your negative emotions and to kind of allow them to do and say whatever they want to do because, again, they're dominating this relationship. And I think back to my own relationship with my narcissistic parent and how intimidating they were at times, where I truly felt like my opinion didn't matter and it wasn't even worth fighting for because I was going to lose in the end anyway. And I think that is also where boundaries come in. And it's so important to talk about these things because, again, I had no idea what boundaries were or that I could set them. And I guess the concept of approaching your parent and saying to them, hey, when you say this thing, it makes me feel really upset and I don't like it. So can you not say this thing to me anymore? And to have that be an open and honest, understanding conversation, it's mind-blowing to me. But how healthy, what a healthy approach to something like that, instead of saying, oh, what, you don't have a sense of humor? You can't take a joke? And then criticizing you for the way that you react to someone else's unhealthy behavior. It just doesn't make sense. All right, and then the last comment that we've got is from Jalen Glenn, who said, first day of my new job at 18 that would fund my escape, my dad hid my car keys and laughed. I showed up 45 minutes late in tears. I'm so sorry that happened, and I completely relate. I also had my keys stolen from me at one point. This makes me think about control, 100%. A narcissist's obsession with control. You're 18, you're considered an adult now, you have a job where you're going to be making your own money, which means that eventually you're going to be able to support yourself and move out. That is one of the most threatening things to a controlling parent. Because the less dependent you are on them, the more able you are to kind of stand on your own 2 feet, the less you need them, the less reliant you are on them, and the less they can hold things over your head. For me, I was on my parents' phone plan and car insurance until I moved out when I was 21. And this can be looked at as a really positive thing in my life, where I was really lucky to experience this with my parents, that they were doing this thing for me. But when it's used as a way of controlling you and manipulating you to do and say the things that your narcissistic parent wants you to say, it takes on a whole different meaning. And so, I remember being deterred from getting a summer job when I was 15, 16 years old. And I was like, okay, cool, I don't have to work in the summer. But looking back, there's this element of control that comes into play where if I'm working on my own, making my own money, I'm less and less dependent on my parent. And a narcissist wants to feel needed. So now not only do they not feel as needed as they once did, but it's getting harder for them to maintain control over you because they're losing leverage. They're losing the things that they have as a means to control you, that they know that you need, that you can't live without. And maybe I'm paying for them or I'm providing these things for you. And so I can threaten to take these things away to get you to act the way that I want you to act. And when you start to take those things away, you are quite literally taking away a narcissist's power. And that, I think, is why it's so threatening to them. All right, that's about all the time that I've got for these comments today. Thank you to everyone who commented on this video. I will be back very soon with another extended cut of It's Not Normal.